Just as far as church was, it was something that we did not have to do growing up.
Okay, so it's not like you grew up in church.
I did not grow up in church, but it was my brother Jamie who he got baptized at another smaller local church.
You moved on. When did you get ordained as a minister?
I actually was ordained and installed as a pastor at the same time.
How did prayer become your thing? Because prayer seems to be your superpower.
Once I seen God answer. There's certain things that people can't tell me about prayer because I seen him answer.
You seen him answer.
I seen him
time
respond.
and time again.
The D.Fos podcast.
D.Fos podcast. We are broadcasting live from Vegas Hype Media Network, the premier podcast studio. Shout out to my man Quan on the boards. And today we really, truly do have a special guest in the building. She is my wife, first and foremost. Just want to welcome Pastor Sharonda Manor-Foster to the show. How you doing?
I am doing great. Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, thank you for coming. And, the Bible says there's a time for everything. And I know that the timing for this couldn't have been better because we're on the heels of Your Believers Prayer Conference 2024. So it gives us enough time to kind of get into that. So we will talk about that and talk about some other things. Let me just give you a little prelim. Pastor Sharonda she's the third of 11 children born to the Manor family. Shout out to the Manor family. Born right in the heart of the Westside, right off is it 921 Weaver Street?
Absolutely.
921 Weaver Street. Now she currently serves as a co-pastor with senior pastor Dr. Nadia Parson. Shout out to Pastor Parson. She's done 2 stage performances, stage productions. The first one was Tell Her, right? And that was around when?
Around 2012.
Okay, and then you followed that up with Tell Him.
2 years later.
Okay, and so both of those was geared towards the women, and then one was geared towards the men, kind of telling their stories. She's currently enrolled in Liberty College, Christian Counseling. She's an intercessor, a prayer warrior. You can catch her every Monday morning from 7 to 8 a.m. on Monday Morning Prayer on New Antioch Christian Fellowship's page. She also has a book club that she reviews books every month. So we're just going to get into a little bit of everything. We're going to talk about the conference. So first and foremost, how was it growing up in your family on the West Side? Big family, 11 kids. How did that shape who you are today and, kind of shape your life to where we are today? How did that growing up?
It's everything. The way we grew up was everything. And I know, a lot of people, there was a stigma. We were West Side projects, 11 children in our household, but it shaped everything. My dad was insistent on us being family. He was insistent on us. And so one of the things that he always taught us, even though we didn't have much, is that we were rich. We were wealthy. We did not have a lot of money, but I believe that we were rich because he told us we were.
Yeah, rich in character, rich in person, rich in who you are.
Rich in love, rich in family.
Yes, and shout out to R.I.P. to Cap. They used to call him Cap, captain of the ship,
yes.
Captain of the boat. I met him. Me and Sharonda have been together. We've been married for 29 years. And when I first met her back in the mid-90s, I called a couple times and he would answer the phone and be like, no, she ain't here. No, I'm like, man, she's never home. And later on, I figured out you wasn't there. You just didn't live there. But never really got to know him. But he, from what I heard, he just seemed like a solid person. But he even kind of was preaching life to you guys, because y'all was like in the heart of the West Side, 70s baby, 80s teen, and 90s young adult. So it was a lot going on. Yeah. What are 2 of the biggest lessons you learned from your mother and your father?
My mom, of course, mother of 11 children.
Shout out to Miss Linda. How you doing, Miss Linda?
Hey, Mom. What she taught us, my biggest lesson from her is she's a fighter. She's fierce, but she does it with grace.
Yes.
And so she's
So
so
much
unassuming. You would never, people don't see that in her, but she has persevered and stood through so much. She's a great teacher of that. And again, my dad taught us family. Family was everything.
Yeah.
And so someone looking at us probably said they don't have anything. Like they don't have much, no name brand clothes or automobiles or housing neighborhoods or anything. But we were rich. And I believe that. And so to carry that lesson through life, that means if you hit rock bottom, if you have nothing in your life, you're still wealthy and you're still rich because of your character and your family. And he instilled that in us.
That goes a long way. And it's like I remember y'all said, he would wake y'all up in the middle of the night and line everybody up. And, I know he, tragically died early in his life, but it's like he knew he had to impart all this wisdom into you guys. It's like it was a sense of urgency, right? And so what are some of the situations that you remember, like he would wake you up? You said it would be something that's going on in the projects, on the neighborhood. What would be anything stand out that he would wake you up like?
Well, it was all the time. And he died of a massive heart attack at 43. And so there was just a sense of urgency our whole lives. And so from the time that I can remember, I mean, we're 4 years old, 5 years old. And if he saw anything on the street that he felt like we needed to know, he'd wake us up, load us all into the back of his truck and take us back. One time I remember specifically is there was a young girl that could have been about our age. And that had to be about between 10 and 13 years old at that time. And he saw her and he said that she was dressed in what had to be her mother's clothes. She was dressed up
like
for her age, yes,
yeah.
walking the streets. And so he loaded up the whole truckload of us and he took us back to the location where he saw her. And he said, I never want to see my little girls out here like this because they're not going to treat you like a little girl. They're going to treat you like a grown woman. And so that lesson is stuck with us. But all of our friends that grew up with us could tell you, if you were at our house and he had something to say, everybody had to come in and sit down. And he was a long lecturer.
Yeah.
He was a constant teacher.
Yeah.
It was almost as if he knew that he wasn't going to be here long. And so he was insistent on the lessons right then, right there in the moment.
And that's powerful. Even now, like you teach, I always say you teach your kids, you teach their kids. So
absolutely.
Y'all imparting stuff and y'all children that, he didn't even know would trickle down the line like that.
Right.
So that's big. That's big. And so then moving along, what are some of your early, I know you was in that, now you are currently a pastor, but even before pastoring, what were some of your early occupations and how we got to the pastor part?
I'm born and raised here in Las Vegas. And so as soon as I was old enough, 21, I started working in a casino. And so I have been in the local casino industry it was 19 years.
Okay, wow.
At that time, and I was in management, and that was my job. I was always in management, moved to leadership. That's what I did for occupation, for work. It was always in that industry, and it taught me a lot. It taught me a lot being there. I know a lot of people, they don't have much good to say about the casino industry. Of course, that's what Vegas is built on.
It's built
There's
on,
a lot of us that are working in there, but the customer service, the people. I learned there that I had a love for people. And that working in the back office with 5 or 6 people was not my thing. I wanted to be out front with the people.
And it's so funny now that the customer service aspect would translate over into ministry because it's a people business.
Yes.
And who would have known that you dealing with that? Did you think like leaving high school, what did you aspire to be initially? What did you just like? I know everybody's just like, I just got to get a job. I just want to, make it. But was that on the horizon? Was like, well, the hotel's the only thing really out here, or what?
That was pretty much the only thing. I did at one time. I wanted to be a school teacher. I wanted to go be physical education and all of that. But again, looking at where my family was, college almost seemed like it was just out of the question. There was no introduction into how I could go to college, and so it really was get out of school, get a job, be a good person. And that was our goal. In the community, my siblings and I, this Manor gang, we're known as good people because that's the way we were raised. And so it really was just get a job. And that's what we did and took care of our families.
Now, we met at the Santa Fe early in the early 90s. I can't remember exactly, 94, 95, somewhere around that ballpark. I seen you. I was like, hey, man, I kind of really didn't want to let you know that I liked you, so I was trying to be low-key about it. But I had an eye on you, and I was just like, well, I'm going to just wait and see, kind of what's going on, which I didn't know, but I knew you was working in Keno. Mm-hmm. And so, well, you got to really thank God for the intersection of the hotels, because I probably would have never met.
Correct.
We was both off, our relationships, with previous relationships we've been in, and I seen. So I just kind of kept an eye on you. Was at any point that you was like, man, I got to get out of this industry? I got to get out of it. Was any point that you felt like you wanted to get out of the industry or what?
I know what it is now, but then I just thought I was just unsettled. And so I did leave. I left a couple of times. Like, I got to get out of here. I went to work at the city jail. There was just a couple of times that I'm like, I got to leave. But none of those things seemed to pan out. And so I would find myself back to where I needed to be, back working in the casino. But I always knew, I remember a customer told me one time, and he was also a manager in another local casino. And he said, you're never leaving here.
Really?
You will never leave this place. You're going to always be here.
Like a detrimental statement.
He said, once people get here, it's just a dead end, and they'll just stay. And I'm like, I'm not staying. I'm getting out of here.
God,
I didn't know how I would get out of there. But I was just like, I'm getting out of here. I often think about him now. I don't even know where he is at this point, but
it's crazy that somebody can say something just like that and it sticks with you. That was probably more of a a motivation now. I got to get out of here now.
Yeah,
absolutely. Just that he said that. Yeah, and so we met around that time and kind of started talking. I think it was your cousin Tiny that kind of set up everything.
Facilitated.
I worked with Tiny in the kitchen, and I didn't know you was his cousin.
Yeah,
and he's like, "Hey, man," and I'm like, "Oh, okay." I didn't know that, so he kind of shout out to Tiny. I don't know where Tiny is nowadays, but
well, our version of that story is a little bit different. Because
what is your version? What do you have?
Well, you say you had your eye on me, but I say that I made the first move. But you said you were still thinking about it.
I just didn't want to let you know. I was kind of trying to play a poker face. So I think I used to work 7 to 3 or 6 to 2, one of them. And used to come in at 10 o'clock.
Correct.
And so I used to always be in the EDR, the employee dining room, around the time you come in. So I was kind of, like I said, I was trying to be low-key about it, but I didn't really want to let you know. And I was just waiting for the opportunity to make my move. But I didn't know when. I didn't want to, run up on you and then somebody else trying to talk to you. So I had that. But I think, if we correct, you probably did initiate the first move. But nonetheless, we here.
It was in the cards. It was in the cards.
Yeah, it was in the cards. So, but I'm glad that, like I say, our paths crossed during that time.
Yeah.
I don't know if I always tell you this. If I would have met you any other time in your life, I don't think you would have been available. You know what I mean? And I would have been trying to push up on your boyfriend or whoever it was, trying to break y'all up. But timing is everything, so I'm glad our paths crossed at the right time. We do share kids together. We have 2 sons and 2 daughters.
Correct.
Terry, Austin, Davion, and Aaliyah, and one grandson, Carter, 6 years old. So we do share that.
And then a granddaughter and a grandson.
Granddaughter and a grandson.
Live in Louisville, Kentucky.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. So how has grandma life changed your perspective and where you are in this season of your life now?
Oh my goodness. We had a conversation just the other day, and they was like, you have to share what's a happy trigger for you. Like, what makes you happy, even if you're in a down state or a moment or whatever. And it's my grandson. It has completely changed us. He says that you're his best friend, and I say that he's my best friend.
Yeah.
He's my best friend. But I know a lot of grandparents say it's a do-over. It's another opportunity for what they missed on raising their children. I don't know if it's a do-over, but it's definitely a different perspective.
It is. It
Being
really
young
is.
and raising your kids, you're just trying to make it.
You're just trying to survive. You don't know what you're doing.
Yes, but with him, you're wiser. We're older. We have more to share and more time. To give. And so he's just a highlight. And
it's more enjoyable at this stage.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
I think Pop is probably one of the best titles I've ever had.
Yes.
Doing so. I wear it with pride. It really means a lot. So
and my grandma was one of my favorite people.
Okay.
She was so important in all of our lives.
Mm-hmm.
And so, a lot of today's grandmas, they got fancy names. They're sweetie,
G mama
they're honey,
and all that.
they're
Everything but grandma.
Everything. But I wanted to be his granny because of my grandma.
Yeah,
and so, like you said, for Pop, granny is just the sweetest sound. Yeah,
that's good. Shout out to Carter. He's always doing his thing.
Yes.
And just makes you laugh. Just being himself.
Yes.
Just being out of nowhere. Definitely a handful. And he won his football game today.
He did win.
Shout out
and
to
he
him.
got a pick six today.
Yeah. Speaking of football, we last month we traveled, went to Pittsburgh on your birthday month. So happy belated birthday month. She was the only person I met that celebrated a whole month. It just wasn't a day, but she has to do the whole month thing. Yeah. We did go to Pittsburgh and went all up there, and the Steelers didn't get the W, but it was a great experience.
It was an amazing experience. Yeah. It was on my bucket list.
Yes.
Like, I want to see the Steelers play. And then more so because it was my dad's team and my brother's team.
Yes.
Neither of them are here anymore. Yeah. And so I got to represent, for both of them. And so it was just great.
So you kind of carrying the torch for that. And that was Absolutely. The Steelers. Your dad was probably around the Steel Curtain, Mean Joe Green, and all that era of football. Yeah. It's definitely big. Now, which one did you enjoy best? Because we went to San Francisco and seen them play.
We did.
And then he was like, well, I want to get the real experience going to Pittsburgh. So which experience? Of course, ain't nothing like home, but which one did you like? But I think we said it was a better game in Frisco.
It was a better game. We just got blew out at Pittsburgh. It was, I didn't want to name the other team and get anybody excited. But when we went to the 49ers Stadium to see the game, it was the first game. It was just so much. It was electric.
It was electric.
It was electric. I know there's a lot of ladies that like football, some that don't, but I am a lady that loves football. And so that was just the best time. You had to eat stadium food.
Yes.
You had to yell and scream. It was a blast. I would have to give it to that 49er game.
Yeah, just because of the stadium maybe, or so it was just different, huh?
It was the feel. And I think we were more excited.
Yeah, I think so too. But it was definitely good. Definitely a good trip. We will probably be back to Pittsburgh. Definitely to see something else. Hopefully they can get another a W next time we go.
Correct.
Definitely. So moving along, like I said, you currently a pastor. When did you first start going to New Antioch Christian Fellowship? And that was the one on Las Vegas Boulevard, the initial campus, right?
Correct.
So when did you first? How did that? I know Jamie kind of brought you there. So explain a little bit how that whole situation happened.
Just as far as church was. It was something that we did not have to do growing up.
Okay, so it's not like you grew up in church.
I did not grow up in church, but it was my brother Jamie who he got baptized at another smaller local church over at Pleasant Grove, as a matter of fact.
Okay,
and we all went there, and then things shifted, and he ended up going to New Antioch Christian Fellowship, where Dr. Naida Parson is the pastor, and he was all involved in the church, and he kept trying to get us, I want y'all to come down here. There's a lady pastor, female pastor, but I want y'all to come. And so finally I went down there just to visit because he kept asking me to come, and he was involved down there. And so the very first time that I went there and I saw Dr. Parson, she stands at the door and she, just greets people as they're leaving out. And she said to me as she shook my hand, she said, "God has spoken well of you."
Didn't know you at all.
Did not know me. She didn't know who I was. And so I said, I'm all suspicious. I'm not raised in church. And I said, I bet you this lady is saying that to everybody that leaves this church. And so I kind of stood over to the side and I watched because I want to see if this is a canned response that she's saying, or did God really say something about me? She didn't say it to everybody. And that moved me. I was moved from the first time that I was there. And so I started going to church there. This was probably 2007, 2008. And I started going to church there with my brother. And then probably a year and a half later, my brother was killed in a car accident while on duty with the Metro Police Department.
R.I.P. the big game, James.
Yes. And so it feels like that now I know, this is hindsight, that he dropped me off there.
He dropped,
And for the longest time, I was like, dude, you really just, you're gone? You're going to leave me here with these people? I don't know these people.
It's like he got you there and he was gone so fast.
He was
so
on, I know that he was on task. It was the best thing that he could have done for me, actually. And so I stayed. I stayed there. I joined the church. I started getting more involved in the church. Actually, it was at my brother's service that Dr. Parsons said, I finally seen you. God showed me you. And it's different when you see somebody.
Yeah. I remember she said, just to hold that thought, that she seen you without you trying to be seen.
Correct. Because I was not trying to be seen.
Duck off, and she was like, I see you.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So.
And she saw the gifting. She said that, God illuminates things. And at that time I was like, it wasn't me that you saw. It's not me. This is not my life. This is not what I'm going to be doing. I'm not a church girl. So it's not me.
How crazy is that? I know, because you thought like, man, I ain't with the churchy and all that stuff like that. Yeah,
I was not.
Yeah. But you was kind of slowly getting into the life, getting deeper into it. Right.
God was pulling me into it, and I did not know. Like I literally, there's a scripture where it says that God blinded Paul and took Paul. He was blind when he went. I feel like I was literally blind the entire time. Like I'm just there I really just wanted to go to church. That was one.
Yes.
I felt like I needed to be in church.
Yes.
And then number two, I felt like I was helping. Like I can help do something here.
Okay. You can be valuable. You can be of assistance.
Yeah. But to pastor or to do any of those things, absolutely not. Absolutely not.
Did you feel that God was still working on you? You know how you people say, I was in the world and now, did you feel like it was a hard shift in that making that transition? Because I know you wasn't buck wild. I didn't know you was, only thing I knew you was like, I dug you because you liked Scarface, E40, and DJ Quick. So I'm like, man, any girl that likes that, they all right with me. You know what I mean? So, but did you feel it was a hard transition, kind of like leaving worldly things and coming, over to this side?
It wasn't a hard transition, but it was new. It was new. I remember being in the middle of this transition and our son saying, that's when you had the 6-disc changer in the car. And he was like, I think you're the only person, like you said, that got Scarface, E40 on one side and you got Kirk Franklin and them on the other side. And so, just every now and then, but it was in the middle of the transition. And it's okay to be in transition.
Yes.
Some people think it has to be some immediate thing, you this or that. God was working me over. I didn't realize what it was. But I'm like, okay, this is not a bad change to make. I think I knew that my life was going to be changed because I would have a drink. I would have a glass of wine. I would have a drink. But the first time that I heard God say, pour it out, I fought with that. I fought with that. And it wasn't like
you still try to keep a piece of this life.
Yeah, I'm like, do I have to get rid of everything? And I didn't do anything the first time I heard it, because you have to know that this is new, where you feel like you can hear God saying something to you. I was one of those people that was like, yeah, sure, God said something to you. Yeah, you can hear him. But I heard him say that.
Heard it for yourself.
And I did nothing.
Okay.
And then I heard him the second time, because I'm still going to church. And I heard it the second time when I was leaving church, and he said, pour it all out. And I remember coming home to you, because we had like a wine rack. We had where people would leave stuff at the house, or when people would go travel, like they would bring me back tequila or something, And I remember coming home and saying to you, I got to pour it all out.
Yeah, I remember
that
the whole rack.
That was the day I knew everything was changing.
And that was before you even got ordained as a minister. That was early on, but he was already kind of cleaning you up to prepare you for where he was going to take you at. Yeah.
And so we poured it all out that day, you and I. I even tried to keep the cute little wine rack that I had. And I'm like, I can put, condiments on here. And he's like, throw it all out. And he wouldn't even allow me to give it to anybody. I'm like, I know people who still drink. And he was like, pour it out. And so we dumped everything. But that day I cried.
Did you? Why? Because it was a dying to something or what? Yeah.
Because I knew that part of me was over, and I knew he's not going to be like, oh, I just told you that for that little season, but now you can go back. It was never going to come back. And I knew that. And the transition was hard. Not because I just wanted a drink, but I knew there was things that I would never be able to do again.
Yeah, going forward, there is no looking back. What do you say about, people in that space that's making the transition that you lose friends and relationships, even though it's people that you cool with, but I just don't rock with how you. I can't do that no more. You know what I mean? So how do you navigate that when you got friends that's still on this side, but your life has shifted?
Yeah. You love them still. I have friends that are in my family. People, they don't understand like what happened to you. This used to be you. We used to be able to do these things. And so you have to give people grace too to try to understand where you went.
Yes.
This is what we did. They didn't hear all of what God told you. They haven't experienced all of what God told you. And so you have to give them grace.
Yes.
Some people will fall away. Those who are meant to remain, meant to stay, they stay.
They stay.
And again, it's a grieving process because what we used to do, where we used to go, how we used to talk, we can't do that anymore. Thankfully, I didn't have any people that got angry. Or people that
kind of understood. People kind of
I didn't get that. But it was an adjustment for my family. Like I was the first one in the family. Like, you're not drinking no more. You
and
can't
was just
do that
such a
no
social
more.
thing.
Yeah,
family
it was
time
just
and,
the girl night out. Let's have a glass of wine. But they understood and they respected it. Even just going to family gatherings, different, siblings' homes. They wouldn't push anything in my face. As a matter of fact, I don't even know it's there. Nobody ever just lines it up, and they're very respectful of my decision.
I noticed that too.
Yeah.
Very respectful.
And so if people are meant to be there through your transition, they will be. And then other people, you just have to put them in the space and not feel like you have to shapeshift for them.
Yeah.
I don't want to be two people.
Right. And like you said, you said you always want to be the same person no matter who you're around. You don't want to be talking this way around this group of people and then
you
putting
gotta
on
change.
this. Yeah. I think it's too hard to juggle all that.
And you're not real.
Right.
You're not real.
Right. I think eventually, people will respect your decision. And maybe when their time comes, when it's time for them, you leading them to God by your example, but they'll get there when they're meant to get there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because truth be told, like I said, you started your path early and you brought me along. I was slow. God was still working on me, but I knew as us being a couple and being together, it was some things I had to die to and had to kind of, straighten myself up, if you will. You know what I mean? Just being when you and being where you was at. So it is a process, and you feel like a part of you is dying, but some things must die.
Some things must die for something else to live.
Yes.
And he was just giving me something else to live for. And so those two things, that person, those things, they couldn't exist together. He was doing something else. And it's our lifestyle. If you can't ever say a word to anybody, explain to them who you are, what you're doing. If they were able, people had a little private camera that's on you all the time. If people are able to watch your life, what does your life say?
Yeah. What does
because
it say?
people want to believe, but they're also looking for a reason not
they're looking
to have
for the first thing. Yeah. I knew it. Yep. They slipped up. Yeah, I knew it. Yeah. That's why you got to be careful being seen and wherever you go and social settings and who you hang around and everything. I remember I heard it put a certain way that people will accept you as anything else in the world except a man or woman of God.
Absolutely.
And I just thought that's so crazy, but it's so true.
It
like
is.
anything else you cool with, but as soon as you start rocking on this side, now that's a problem.
Yeah.
So that's weird. And so you moved on. When did you get ordained as a minister?
I actually was ordained and installed as a pastor at the same time. And that was in 2017.
Okay,
2017. We moved on and opened a second campus at the church.
Okay.
And
New Antioch Christian Fellowship at Aliante.
Aliante. What's up, Aliante?
Shout out to Aliante. Okay. And so you was planted there. You came from Central and then went to open
a second campus. Dr. Parson opened a second campus. And of course, people from the original campus, they move over to help start that up.
Okay.
And it was just my intention to just help get it going. I wasn't going to move. But again, God had a plan the entire time. And then ministry started to grow. You feel responsible. God is pulling you to ministry. And that person that was like, don't call me a church girl. This is not what I'm trying to do. I'm not like y'all. God was talking to me. And I just remember my pastor saying to me, you don't believe anything unless God himself tells you. But I was waiting because I had built up what I thought church people were. And God was showing me different.
You had a stereotypical view of what
absolutely,
church,
I did. And when everything happened with my brother, with Jamie's accident, and New Antioch stepped up and showed up and was present, I'm like, oh, wait, this church people, this is the way it is. And I felt like I was indebted to them. I felt like I owed Pastor Parsons something after that. And so, you know, I've served with her. I don't feel like I owe her anything anymore. She's my friend, my pastor. So I just stand along now out of loyalty. And she's a great teacher, mentor.
A great teacher,
Oh, my gosh. But yeah, it was what God had called me to. And so then the minister came along and then the pastor came along. And now again, since 2017, I've been pastoring alongside of Dr. Parson. This will be my second year being co-pastor of the Aliante campus now.
And you had to kind of get used to that suit because it was a new kind of fit for you to kind of going forward to that. Yeah. How did prayer become your thing? Because prayer seems to be your superpower or your thing. I know initially y'all started with Pastor Linda.
Correct.
So yeah, but how did prayer become your thing?
It was gifted to me. And again, it's like everything else for me in this journey that it is I'm blind. I'm blind. Coming to prayer service was a responsibility of the leadership at the church.
Okay.
And so I would come to prayer because the leaders were expected to be in prayer.
Okay.
And then something started to develop. Like I didn't want to pray. Don't ask me to pray out loud.
Leave me alone.
I'm gonna hide in the back. But I wanted to be there. I wanted to be in the room. Something was pulling me to the room. And then Pastor Linda was teaching us how to do it. And we'll talk about that. But she was teaching us how to pray, the importance of prayer, and it just got into me. It just became who I am. And I wanted to do it. And I just remember feeling like he can hear me.
He can hear me, yeah.
God can hear me. And then once you get a result in prayer, if you know that you have prayed for, I feel the Holy Spirit right now. If you know that you have prayed for something in prayer and you get the result, it almost seals it for you. It seals it.
It's confirmation.
I can do this again.
It's confirmation.
I can do this again. He can hear me.
I remember I said, when we was in a meeting, I said, don't be surprised when you get what you pray for.
Oh, my goodness.
You know what I mean? We get so shocked, like, oh, it actually came true. But like, I've prayed, I've petitioned for this. And I'm looking forward to this. You've grown just strong in prayer, and I think that's a phenomenal thing. Like I said, you can catch her every Monday morning from 7 to 8. And I remember you said starting out praying, it was so hard to pray for 10 minutes.
Oh,
now
it
you
was
can
hard
do
to
an
pray
hour.
for 5 minutes.
Yeah, now you can do an hour like it's nothing. So you had to build up your stamina. Then when I start, learning how to pray, thanks to you and cats like Keith Calhoun and Mariah Richardson and other brothers, Pastor Darian. And you do it so almost effortlessly. But I remember you used to do poetry. And I looked at it and I'm like, it's kind of like spiritually freestyling. Because you kind of let the spirit get into you and then you kind of putting it out. So did your poetry background help you in writing and preaching and praying? Did that help, or did that have anything to do with it, you would think?
I know
they're two different things, but just the whole aspect of it.
I think the gift was already there. So the gift of oration is in our family. So we're a family of orators and artistic people also. And I think that me doing poetry, I didn't know what I was supposed to do with the gift. And so I started writing, and I was doing spoken word. And so I knew I had a voice for it, and I knew that I could write. I did not, but it never seemed like it was my lane, my place. I could do it. I did shows. I was with my sister, Tara Bliss.
Shout out to Tara
Manor.
Bliss. Yeah, shout out to Tara. Yeah.
And to me, she would just set the place ablaze. She was it. Her and China Hudson, like they were killing it. And I felt like I was along with them. Like I could fit in the crowd, but it never quite felt like I was good at it. Yeah. But as I began to transition and shift into writing sermons, into praying, into using my voice to speak and preach, this is what I was supposed to do with that voice all along, with that gift. But for sure, it was a transition because I had kind of knocked nerves off, if you will, and standing before people.
Yes. So you kind of get your
You're nervous every time. I'm still nervous on Sundays, but some of that nerve in like, I got to put that away now because it's time to go to work.
It's time to really go to work.
And so that helped.
Yeah. I know my boy, Tony, Anthony Venegas, he said that he learned, like he honed his skills in the world. He's a videographer and camera, but he used it, for God. But I think a lot of people do that. You're not knowing till you look back.
Yeah.
But I'm honing it in the world, using it. And then when it's time to use it, I've prepared myself, got practice and all that. So.
And some of those giftings were always for God.
Yes,
they
always,
were always for God. Like I knew you, and I knew which way you were going to go. I knew I seen you coming, and it was always for that. So he's so gracious, God. He'll allow us to try some stuff.
Yes,
Like okay, go ahead and try the poetry.
Yeah. I'll be waiting on you when you get back.
Go ahead, and it was really all for him.
Yeah. What would you say is the biggest misconception of being a pastor?
Ooh. The biggest one, well, there's a few. There's a few. The biggest one, or one of the biggest, is they're not perfect people.
Yes. Yeah,
and just because God chose them, he anoints them, they appear powerful, we're still human beings. We're still susceptible to making a mistake and tripping up. But for some reason, when a pastor messes up, it's the end of the world.
It's the end of the world.
People come down on them so hard and with no grace and no forgiveness.
At all.
But everybody else can. The president of the United States and everybody else that we follow, we're not perfect people. We are the same as everybody else.
And pastors, they still have their struggles, their trials, their temptation, everything.
Absolutely. And I know I get flack for this. Often I get flack for that because they think that pastors are in this to get rich. And it gripes me from a person who has been on the inside of ministry, from a person who sees the finances of the church. Maybe some pastors are, but the ones that I know, they're not getting rich off of the church. The church can't even barely pay them enough to live a life. And so this is a God call. Now, are people able to pervert the call? Yes. But this is a God call, and it's not about money. It's not about the money.
You can't be in it for money. And people think like the pastors are riding around in Maybachs or Benzes or something, like they're just doing God's work, And even if a pastor was riding in a luxury vehicle, if I'm doing this job that I'm called for, I don't deserve to show up in style.
Correct.
It's like it's crazy to me that is. But
and I've heard people say that they don't want to pay for anything at the church. It should be free. God's word is free. A conference or a workshop, I'm not paying for that. It should be free. And that just blows my mind for people to say that, because who's paying for the room?
And you expect the lights to be on, the air conditioning to be on.
Who's paying for that? Who's paying for the printed material? But people don't think further than that. And so I think that's one of the big ones.
That's crazy. Well, today's episode is sponsored by the Believers Prayer Conference. That is coming up. So we're going to talk about that. And we're going to run a video, Quan, if you can cue that video up for us. This is from 2022's Believers Prayer Conference.
And man heard, and man spoke, and God heard. The most powerful, pivotal moments. I'm glad you're here, because we prayed for you. Communication with God. You say something,
he says something. He asks you a question, you give him an answer. You ask him a question, he gives you an answer. You really entered into prayer when you're having a two-way conversation.
You will answer to it, Father God. So he come with the desires of our heart.
If this tears, I cannot reach a relationship. These are the disciples. He hung with them.
God said, I hear my people. I hear my people, I hear. I hear my people, I hear. In the name of Jesus.
And I shouldn't have a revelation of who you are, because if it had been up to that trauma in my life, I would have been and lost my mind. God, that you have given me, given us.
Father, for anointed men, for gifted men, for integral men, men of character, Father, we thank you even now, God. That
All ready, done, it's all ready, done. I see it for myself. I see it for myself. I see it for myself. Hey, I see it for myself.
So tell us about this year's Believers Prayer Conference, and how did the first one? How did it come to fruition? How did that happen? Because it was something huge for you, right? A huge undertaking.
It was huge, and I'm so excited. Even looking at the video from the recap from last year, that actually Monday morning, you mentioned Monday morning prayer. I'm on every Monday morning at 7 a.m. and we pray for an hour. But it was in that group of people that we kept talking about different workshops on prayer. We pray for an hour, and then we have what we call the after talk of prayer.
Yes, yeah.
And we started talking because people wanted to know more about prayer. Teach us about prayer. How do we do this? What is it? And so I said, maybe we should do a prayer conference. I had done a training over at Pastor McCoy and Adrian McCoy's church over
Shout
at
out to
Foundation.
McCoy and them. Shout out to the
Christian
Foundation
Center. And I did a training for their prayer team, and he said, you got a whole conference here. This is a whole conference. And so I remembered what he said, and then the Monday morning crew was asking
He's
for
taking the
more
feedback and
on it. And I'm like, y'all, we're going to do a conference this year. And it was huge. I had never done a conference of my own. Not one of those people that just say, I need to be doing something, or I got to be doing something. But God was behind it.
Yes.
He's like, teach my people how to talk with me. Teach them how to have an intimate conversation, relationship with me. And so we went to work, and I was so grateful for the people that came alongside. Of course, Dr. Parson was right there. Of course, she's put on conferences before, and she's like, I'll help you. Pastor Ronnie Jones Thompson, like, I'll take half of it. I got you. And so we just had a great team of people that came alongside of us, and we put on workshops to actually teach people how to pray.
Yeah, and it was a 3-day thing. It was
it's
Thursday,
a
Friday.
3-day conference, and the feedback that we received from all of the workshops was just phenomenal. Like, I couldn't believe it myself. I'm still blown away by what God did in it. And I wasn't sure if this was going to be an annual thing, something that we would do over and over again.
It was almost like a one shoot, and then you got feedback after the other one ended.
It's like, we want more of this. And more than the people saying we want more, God is still saying, teach my people how to pray. Teach them how to pray. Now, and I don't spend too much time on this, but even as that was coming about the conference, and I'm saying, I'm going to do a conference to teach people how to pray. There's always a sidebar of people that's like, we don't need a conference to teach people how to pray. The Bible tells us how to pray. It really was just negative feedback for me, because I had already knew what God told me to do. And then there's people that say, well, it don't take all of that. Like, we pray for an hour every day in our ministry. It don't take all that. One word of prayer is enough, and it is. But sometimes you need more than that. You need more.
And I think them are the novice people. And I think anything that you put out there in the marketplace or whatever, it's for who it's for, and it's not for everybody. It's not for everybody.
And I love this quote, and I've adopted it, that I got from Dr. Parson, and it is that everyone should have a prayer life.
Yes.
But not everyone has a life of prayer.
Yeah. That's
Some of
good.
us are
That's
called
good.
to have a life of prayer.
Mm-hmm,
Yes, all believers should have a prayer life. We have to know how to pray.
Yes.
We have to know how to communicate. But not everybody has a life of prayer.
Yeah,
I've been
yeah.
called to a life of prayer. Prayer is what I
That is
do.
your thing. Yeah.
And there's people who want to know,
Yes,
who want to
yes,
learn.
yeah.
There are ministries, and it kind of makes me, I'm scared for them when there are ministries that don't have a prayer team.
Yes, they don't. Yeah, don't even know where to start.
They
You know
don't.
what I mean? Yeah,
and so the
yeah.
pastors and the leaders are trying to hold up that end of the ministry to cover the whole ministry and pray and preach and teach and counsel.
It's a lot.
The
yeah.
prayer team is pivotal structurally to the ministry. Our ministry wouldn't be the same without the prayer team.
Yes, I agree. I totally
And
agree.
families the same. Mom and dads and children. Who's covering your family in prayer?
Yes.
This is for believers. I get passionate about prayer.
Yeah.
Like we can't just leave it to happenstance.
Yes.
Of
Leave it
what's
to
going to
chance.
happen
Yeah.
for your children. And we talked about this a few minutes earlier where we said, once I seen God answer. There's
That's
certain
proof.
things that people can't tell me about prayer because I seen him answer.
You've seen him answer.
I seen him
time
respond.
and time again. Yes. Yes.
Big
yeah.
things,
Yeah.
little things.
Yeah.
I've seen barren wombs give birth to babies.
Right.
You
That's
can't
true.
tell me
yeah,
nothing.
I know. Yeah, it's true.
I
yeah,
have
yeah.
seen mentally ill minds be healed. I've seen people come out of ICU wards in hospitals
Yes,
where the
yes,
doctor
yeah.
had already called in the family and said, call it. We got to unplug them. It's done. And I seen prayer bring the person
Turn
back.
it all the way around.
We have been praying for a gentleman, just for example, and the last thing that we heard is that his lungs had collapsed, that he was brain dead, and that he was not going to make it. I saw that man walk into our ministry,
Golly.
and I lost it.
Wow.
I
Walking
lost it.
straight up by itself into
And
the
I'm
ministry.
looking from the podium, like, is that him? Is that you? And we have to celebrate what God does.
Yeah. And if that doesn't make you a believer, I don't know what will.
I don't know. And it took us more than one word to pray for him. We had to labor in prayer for him.
Yeah. But if you don't have the spiritual stamina to know how to go
Come on.
deep like that, then
Come on.
you're not going to meet that.
Yeah.
I see.
And that's a whole workshop there, Mr.
Yes.
Foster,
Yeah,
stamina in prayer.
Yeah.
But we're going to do it again this year.
Okay, so tell us about it. When is this coming up in a few weeks? So give us the dates and
It is.
everything. Okay.
It's coming up October 26th through the 28th.
Okay.
We're going to start the 26th that Thursday night with a worship service.
Okay.
It's going to be at night. We have Aria Gaston and Kay Ashley.
Okay.
They're going to come through and lead us in praise and worship. We have the dance team from New Antioch at Aliante.
Okay.
They're going to come
Shout
and
out to the
set
dance team.
atmosphere.
And where's the location at?
It's going to be at TCMI Church. That's over at 5101 North Rainbow.
Okay.
Right across from the Santa Fe Casino.
Beautiful church, big church. yeah,
Beautiful
yeah,
church. We have our guest speakers that's coming in. We have Apostle Darrell Merchant that is coming in from Richmond, Virginia.
Okay.
Oh my goodness, amazing. Of course, we have Dr. Parson.
Okay.
We have Pastor McCoy.
Okay.
Dr. Avis Hinkson. All of these people are going to do workshops. They'll be there with us. So we have Thursday night a worship service. Friday from 8 to 3, we're going to have workshops all day.
Okay.
We'll come back Friday night for another worship service. And then we'll have workshops on Saturday, 8 to 3. And I have to share that we do a training, which is the first training that I did, the one I mentioned for Pastor McCoy.
Okay.
And it's praying through the tabernacle. It's a prayer pattern. It's the way that we were taught. And my God, it is amazing. Stephanie Cepeda has recreated all of the furnishings from the tabernacle.
Shout out to Steph. She did her thing.
She did that, man, and they will be at the conference. And so we're just excited about what's going to happen. We have vendors coming. Chantel's Gifted Boutique will be there.
Okay.
ACS will be there.
It's a full-blown conference. Yeah.
A full
and you leveled it up
conference.
from even last year. You went
Absolutely.
a step further. And I like the training I had last year when men pray.
Yes.
Teaching men how to kind of go into depth, how to be leaders in prayer. So I got a lot out of that workshop myself. So I'm looking forward to it.
Yes.
I'm looking forward to
This year's theme is the builders.
Okay.
And how to build in prayer.
Okay.
And so God is going to give us that. We got it based off of Ezekiel, the book of Ezekiel.
Okay.
When God said, I'm still looking for somebody to stand in the gap before me and build. And so that's what we're going to do. I get excited about it.
Yeah.
Prayer
and we put
is
the link to the conference in the comments right here. It's the Believers Prayer Conference, bpconference.org. So click on there, register, get your tickets and everything.
And let me share this about the conference. Last year, we didn't have this component. This year, we have a whole youth conference.
That's right.
That's
a
going to
new
happen
element.
in the conference.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's geared towards the youth.
Middle schoolers and high schoolers.
Okay.
They'll have their own workspace, their own workshops. We partner with CGR Leadership.
Okay.
With Dr. Parson. CGR is Christian Gents Reign and Christian Girls Rule.
Okay.
And we're going to teach our young people how to pray.
That's getting the next generation ready.
Absolutely.
Getting them, positioning them and setting them up for
and they need it now.
Yes.
Not only for when they get to be adults. Our youth need to know how to reach God now.
Yeah.
Because there are some things that's happening in the home, happening with them that they're not going to tell their parents.
That's true.
So they need to be able to fight and have a reliable source like God for themselves. It's going to be amazing this year.
Yeah, I think so. I really think so. That's big. Did you feel, I know we talked about how scale of it is, but if it's, what they say, if your goals and dreams aren't in scaring you, they're not big enough. That's when you know you need God. You know, did you feel his presence behind the whole thing, like helping put it all together, connecting the dots?
I did, because again, we're over at TCMI Church, and it's a huge church. And anyone who knows and have ever put on anything, there's a cost behind all of this. It costs to have their facility, the beautiful place. And I went over there. Yes, I am pastoring. We have our own church over in Aliante and Central Vegas. But I wanted us to feel like we were away at a conference too. And so that's why we went away from home, so that we could be there. But it costs. And I want to be a blessing to the people that come to preach and teach. And so God had to be in it with us. He had
giving
to.
them something of quality, a quality event, quality location.
And why do we have to do the things of God? I was talking with someone this morning, and we're talking about the budget of the conference. There is a budget that we have to meet to get things done. But I said, why do the things of God have to be downscaled?
Yes.
Why do they have to be cheap?
Cheap, you're right.
When nobody said anything, and I ain't banging on nobody, but we just had 2 major concerts to come through Las Vegas at the Allegiant Stadium, and nobody said, hey, why don't you guys go over to the Thomas and Mack?
Nobody said nothing. They didn't try to downsize that.
And they paid to be there.
And they pay without question.
The things of God have value. And for some reason, believers think that it should be free or it should be cheap. But we're willing to pay for everything else. And so for God, I want to go big. My brother James was like, go big or go home.
Go big or go home.
And so I'm going big until it's time to go home.
I think that's the only way to do it. That's the only way to do it.
And I want the things of God to be excellent and beautiful. And so that's what we're doing for the Believers Prayer Conference.
So it's big. It's coming up. Like I say, you can register. It's in the comments. You can see, you've seen the clip where so it's going to be a lot of energy, a lot of excitement, a lot of training. A lot of vendors and everything. I had a great time last year. So it's going to be big.
bpconference.org.
BP Conference. Yep. Okay. And you can also catch Sharonda every second week of the month.
Every second Sunday.
She's up to preach, so she'll be up tomorrow.
Correct.
Just by having a chance, she'll be up tomorrow. Anything else you want to leave the people with before we get out of here?
No, that's it. Y'all come and join us at the Believers Prayer Conference. You'll be blessed by it. Keep on believing. Keep on believing. I know that it looks bleak on the outside. There's wars and rumors of war. Things are going on. But God is still in control. And so get into a place where you can know him, where you can meet him. It'll make your life better and those around you better. And so there's still some believers. It's the Believers Prayer Conference. I am a believer. So there's still some believers that are standing with God and knowing that
to the believers.
He is still in charge.
Yes. Absolutely. Amen. So the D.Fos podcast, my guest, Pastor Sharonda Manor-Foster, my man Quan, Vegas Hype Media Network, and we signing off to the next episode. Peace.